Honestly, I don't even think about nothing. I don't think about anything. If it's not words or anything, you know, at this point, it can't do anything to me. You know, I know, you know, the God put the ability and the power within me to not even think about nobody else's comments, not care. It is what it is. I spoke with him. He said, nah, bro, that wasn't. He said, that wasn't. He told me on the plane. He came up. He was like, nah, bro, that wasn't at you. I see how they trying to spin. I'm like, oh, all right. I'm not tripping, regardless of whatever it was. Nobody's words or anything affects me.
Shedeur Sanders just pulled off something Dillon Gabriel couldn't, landing a headline-making Adidas deal that instantly shifts the balance of power off the field. In the world of modern football, where NIL money and sponsorships matter almost as much as passing yards, this is more than just a contract. It's a signal of who brands believe can move markets, command national attention, and embody the future of the sport. For Sanders, it's another win in a growing list of victories that extend far beyond the hash marks. TV ratings spiked 27% the moment Colorado games featured Shedeur Sanders last season, and that single number goes a long way toward explaining why Adidas decided to throw its weight behind him over Dillon Gabriel. For a brand that lives and dies by cultural reach and market momentum, aligning with Sanders wasn't just about betting on a quarterback's arm strength, it was about attaching themselves to the biggest on-field story that bled over into fashion, media, and national sports talk shows. Gabriel, while efficient and steady under center, simply didn't carry that type of gravitational pull. Adidas followed the data, and the decision reflects a broader trend where visibility and cultural resonance are beginning to outweigh even win-loss records when it comes to brand investment. Adidas structured this move as more than a straight NIL payout. According to early reports from industry trackers, Sanders' deal positions him as one of the most visible college football faces in Adidas' entire portfolio, which is rare air when you consider that the brand typically saves that tier of investment for NBA stars or global soccer icons. To understand why, it helps to look at what Sanders delivered in 2023. Colorado's season may have ended with just 4 wins, but viewership told a completely different story. Their opener against TCU pulled in 7.3 million viewers, a staggering number for an early season game, and subsequent broadcasts on Fox and ESPN consistently landed above the 5 million mark. That's double or even triple what Dillon Gabriel's Oklahoma matchups drew when adjusted for market size. And for Adidas, that difference in reach isn't minor, it's everything. Ticket sales provide another layer of context. Colorado home games went from being priced at around $60 on secondary markets in 2022 to crossing the $300 average mark during Sanders' first stretch under Deion Sanders. Resale prices for big matchups like Colorado versus USC skyrocketed to over $500, with some seats hitting 4 digits. Meanwhile, Gabriel's presence at Oklahoma didn't fundamentally shift the economics of Sooners football. Oklahoma already carried one of the most loyal fan bases in the nation, with sellouts practically guaranteed no matter who the quarterback is. For Adidas, the question wasn't who could sustain a tradition, it was who could generate an entirely new wave of interest. Sanders turned a program that had been an afterthought into the single hottest ticket in college football for a 3-month span. Merchandise sales only sharpened the divide. Reports from Fanatics and school-affiliated shops confirmed Colorado gear sales spiked by over 800% once Sanders and his father arrived in Boulder. The black and gold look was suddenly on national TV nightly highlight shows, ESPN panels, and even celebrity sideline photos. Sanders' number 2 jersey consistently ranked among the top 5 sellers in the country, often rivaling Bryce Young or Caleb Williams from the year before. Dillon Gabriel, while respected and certainly followed in Oklahoma, never cracked that kind of national merchandise radar. Jerseys with his name sold, but they moved largely within state lines and didn't penetrate broader culture. Adidas evaluated those numbers and understood one thing clearly: Sanders moves product in a way Gabriel simply does not. The endorsement calculus also comes down to media resonance. Sanders' highlights were not just replayed during college football recaps, they became talking points on mainstream shows like First Take and The Herd. His games produced storylines that lived for an entire week, feeding into debates about Deion's impact, the racial and cultural dynamics of his rise, and what his draft stock might look like 2 years in advance. Gabriel, in comparison, rarely made national waves. His efficient stat lines, 3,660 passing yards, 30 touchdowns, and just 6 interceptions were excellent, but they didn't dominate conversation outside of Oklahoma City or Norman. For Adidas, that difference is the whole deal. A quarterback who moves ratings, jerseys, and debate segments is infinitely more valuable than one who merely racks up wins quietly. And yet, this isn't simply about media hype. Performance metrics also feed into the Adidas calculation. Sanders threw for 3,230 yards and 27 touchdowns in his first Power 5 season, despite playing behind an offensive line that allowed 52 sacks, the most in the FBS. Gabriel's efficiency in a better system was impressive, but scouts and brands alike note that Sanders produced eye-popping numbers under adversity. That grit factor feeds into storytelling, and Adidas has long been a brand that leans heavily on narrative. They don't just want winners, they want athletes who embody resilience, who represent a fight against odds. From Derrick Rose's comeback campaigns to James Harden's unconventional rise, Adidas thrives when they can tell a story. Sanders fits perfectly into that lineage. The timing of the deal adds another layer of consequence. NIL valuations are still volatile, but industry monitors like On3 projected Sanders' market worth at over $4.6 million heading into 2024, placing him in the top 5 across all college athletes. Gabriel hovered closer to the $1.5 million range. That gap doesn't just reflect popularity, it translates directly into corporate willingness to invest. By striking now, Adidas ensured they locked in Sanders before other apparel giants like Nike or Jordan Brand could escalate bidding wars. In doing so, they staked a claim to the most visible quarterback in the NIL landscape, something that Gabriel's camp simply could not offer. This immediate headline isn't just about Sanders' payday, it's a recalibration of how endorsement hierarchies are established. For years, quarterbacks earned deals once they became NFL rookies. Think about Baker Mayfield with Progressive, Patrick Mahomes with State Farm, or Justin Herbert with Nike. Now, the shift is happening in college. Sanders has become the prototype for what brands will chase, a player who combines production, media magnetism, and cultural relevance before ever stepping on an NFL field. Gabriel, despite a strong collegiate career, just doesn't fit that mold. His leadership and consistency will always have value, but in the eyes of Adidas, that wasn't enough to justify major national dollars. The consequence for Gabriel is subtle, but real. While he may still land regional deals or secondary sponsorships, missing out on an Adidas-level partnership underscores a reality he's already facing in draft conversations. He's respected but not a star. Brands are already signaling who they believe will carry the next wave of football marketing, and Gabriel's omission here is telling. For Sanders, every indicator from ratings spikes to resale market explosions suggests his profile isn't just hype, it's monetizable momentum. Adidas saw it, measured it, and put their signature on it. The Adidas deal matters right now because it reinforces how Shedeur Sanders has already shifted the landscape of college football economics, while Dillon Gabriel is fighting just to be noticed in the same conversation. This isn't some distant endorsement that will pay dividends years down the line. The effect is happening in real time, and the numbers show it. For Sanders, every snap he takes this season carries not just football stakes, but business stakes, and that reality is already rippling through his program, the Pac-12 transition landscape, and the broader NIL marketplace. Start with television. Colorado went from being an afterthought in scheduling to becoming a centerpiece of national programming in 2023, and that trend is continuing into 2024. ESPN and Fox executives made it clear, when Sanders is under center, the games stay in prime slots. In fact, 6 of Colorado's first 8 games were nationally televised last season, with average audiences north of 4.5 million. Compare that to Oklahoma, where Gabriel's presence rarely pushed ratings beyond the 3 million range unless they faced Texas or another blue blood. That discrepancy matters now because Adidas isn't waiting for draft evaluations or combine metrics, they're attaching their brand to the quarterback who delivers instant ratings bumps. If one player is boosting viewership by 30% compared to historical averages, while another is merely sustaining expectations, the marketing choice becomes obvious. Attendance spikes tell a similar story. Colorado's home attendance didn't just rise, it exploded. Folsom Field, which holds just over 50,000, became one of the toughest tickets in America. In fact, the resale market documented that the average seat cost jumped from $72 in 2022 to over $280 in 2023. And for the USC Showdown, tickets reached $517 on StubHub. That's a real-time economic impact tied directly to Sanders' star power. By contrast, Oklahoma's ticket market remained steady. Norman has always packed its stands, but Gabriel never altered the economics of entry. Season ticket holders still renewed, fans still showed up, but there wasn't a price shock. For Adidas, the ability to point at a quarterback and say, he alone changed the economics of ticket sales, is a present-day marketing win they can exploit across campaigns. On the business side, Sanders' NIL valuation isn't just a theoretical number on a website. According to reports, his sponsorship portfolio already stretches beyond $4.6 million annually. That puts him shoulder to shoulder with Bronny James and Arch Manning, athletes whose family names alone generate market power. Gabriel's value hovers in the $1.15 million range. That's not nothing. Plenty of players would dream of those numbers, but in relative terms, it's a third of Sanders' influence. Right now, as NIL continues to evolve, that gap means Sanders is becoming a template for how the market will function moving forward. He's not just participating in NIL, he's shaping it. Gabriel, meanwhile, risks being a footnote in this transformation. Another capable starter who never crossed into marketing superstardom. Jersey sales offer a case study in immediacy. Fanatics confirmed that Sanders' jersey consistently ranked inside the top 10 of all NCAA football jerseys sold in 2023, competing with players from powerhouse programs that dwarfed Colorado's win total. Gabriel's jersey, on the other hand, ranked outside the national top 20, rarely gaining traction outside Oklahoma's fan base. Adidas can now run campaigns where Sanders' number 2 jersey is not only marketed to Buffalo's fans, but to sneakerheads and cultural influencers who see his style as crossover fashion. That's happening right now. Every week, kids are buying Sanders jerseys as lifestyle apparel, not just as fan gear. That's a level of cultural penetration Gabriel hasn't come close to touching. The timing also matters because the draft clock is ticking. Sanders is on trajectory to enter the NFL within the next year or two, and Adidas is essentially planting their flag before the gold rush. This early alignment gives Sanders a head start in the branding arms race. Nike, Jordan, and Under Armour will still fight for other quarterbacks, but Adidas now owns the first mover advantage. Gabriel, despite a productive career at UCF and Oklahoma, simply doesn't project as a marketing centerpiece on draft night. NFL teams may evaluate him for efficiency and leadership, but brands are already passing judgment by omission. Right now, before either has played a down of professional football, the market has already chosen. Fan sentiment underscores the gap. Social media engagement is often the hidden driver behind endorsement deals, and Sanders has mastered that space. His Instagram following surged past 1.5 million in 2023, a growth of nearly 400% in one season. TikTok clips of his highlights and press conferences regularly hit millions of views. Gabriel's following, while steady, lingers below 200,000 across platforms. Adidas isn't blind to those numbers. In an age where athletes themselves are content distribution networks, having an in-house platform that reaches millions is as valuable as any billboard campaign. Sanders provides that in real time. Gabriel does not. There's also the immediate cultural layer. Sanders is not just a quarterback. He's the son of Deion Sanders, which multiplies his spotlight. Every move Shedeur makes is filtered through the lens of Deion's larger-than-life presence at Colorado, and Adidas has effectively hitched their brand to an ongoing media circus that dominates fall Saturdays. Right now, sports talk shows debate Colorado's viability, Deion's coaching decisions, and Shedeur's draft ceiling daily. That oxygen feeds into Adidas's brand presence without them having to spend additional advertising dollars. Gabriel, by contrast, is fighting for oxygen in a crowded quarterback landscape where his storylines rarely pierce the national narrative. The stakes are also financial for Colorado. The program itself is benefiting in real time from Sanders' profile. School administrators reported record donations during the 2023 season, with boosters citing Deion and Shedeur as the reason for increased checks. The university sold out of season tickets months in advance, something they hadn't done in decades. Those dollars fund not just football, but other sports and facilities. That impact, tied directly to Shedeur's brand, is unfolding right now in Boulder. Gabriel's impact on Oklahoma athletics is harder to isolate because the Sooners machine was already humming. Adidas wanted the quarterback who could move the needle for an entire university, not one who blended into existing tradition. Why it matters now too is how the NFL will interpret this endorsement. Franchises are increasingly aware of off-field marketability when making draft investments. Trevor Lawrence came in as a surefire number, one not only because of his play, but because of his national recognition and bankability. Sanders, by securing Adidas early, strengthens his case as a face of the franchise prospect. Gabriel, even with similar statistical output, will be viewed through a narrower lens, a quarterback who might fit as a solid starter or backup, but not a centerpiece. Those judgments begin now, not later, and this Adidas deal is a flashing signal to NFL executives. Even sportsbooks are adjusting in real time. Betting handles on Colorado games doubled during the 2023 season, with odds makers openly admitting that Sanders' presence alone attracted casual bettors. Prop bets on his passing yard totals became some of the most popular in the college market, rivaling Heisman contenders. Gabriel's games, despite Oklahoma's success, didn't carry the same betting pull. That's important right now because gambling companies too are tracking which athletes drive handle, and those patterns influence future sponsorship partnerships. Sanders' Adidas deal isn't happening in a vacuum. It's connected to an entire economy that's already reacting to his name. Put simply, the Adidas contract matters in this moment because it cements Sanders as the most bankable player in college football. Not 2 years from now, not after he's drafted, but today. It validates what television ratings, ticket sales, and merchandise numbers have already been screaming. Sanders is the epicenter of college football's cultural boom. Gabriel remains a strong quarterback with NFL potential, but he hasn't demonstrated the ability to bend the market around him. Adidas knows it, the media knows it, and increasingly, so do fans. Unlike Dillon Gabriel's steady but understated career arc, Shedeur Sanders' rise has mirrored the trajectory of past stars whose brand power often outpaced their win totals. To understand just how wide this gap has become, you have to look back at history and measure the parallels. This Adidas deal doesn't exist in isolation. It's part of a larger pattern of how companies choose quarterbacks to embody their brands, and the difference between Sanders and Gabriel today is reminiscent of divides we've seen before in college and professional football. Start with Cam Newton. When Newton exploded onto the scene at Auburn in 2010, Under Armour made him one of their most visible athletes immediately after he entered the NFL. The reason wasn't simply his Heisman Trophy or national championship, it was the cultural wave that followed him. Newton had a signature smile, an instantly recognizable style, and the ability to generate highlight reels that lived well beyond SEC country. Adidas sees the same ingredients in Sanders. The production on the field is part of the package, but the broader energy around him is what makes the investment worthwhile. Gabriel, even with nearly identical passing totals to Sanders last season, does not evoke that same mainstream pull. His highlights are efficient, but not viral. His persona is respected, but not magnetic. The gap is the difference between a star who sells sneakers in New York and Los Angeles and a quarterback who sells jerseys in his home state. Johnny Manziel provides another instructive comparison. Before his NFL flameout, Manziel was one of the hottest college football properties of the last 2 decades. Nike didn't care that Texas A&M wasn't winning national titles. They cared that Manziel moved conversations, sold out stadiums, and filled social media feeds with content. Sanders' rise at Colorado mirrors that phenomenon in a modernized way. His games became national events despite a 4-win season, and his jersey sold nationally the same way Manziel's did in 2012. Gabriel, even when putting up better efficiency numbers, simply doesn't enter the conversation because his style doesn't create the same ripple effect. That's not a knock on his play, it's a reflection of how the endorsement marketplace works. Then there's Patrick Mahomes. When Adidas signed Mahomes early in his NFL career, they did so before he became the MVP caliber player we know today. Adidas bet on his charisma, his unique style of play, and his potential to be a generational figure. They weren't wrong. Sanders represents a similar bet, only happening sooner at the college level. Adidas is effectively saying, we see the charisma, the family brand power, and the market influence, and we believe it will translate. Gabriel doesn't inspire that level of projection. Scouts will praise his leadership and accuracy, but shoe companies aren't in the business of rewarding steady leadership. They're in the business of amplifying energy, controversy, and mass market attention. Television ratings put the comparison into sharper focus. When Colorado opened against TCU in 2023, 7.3 million people tuned in, a record for Fox's big noon kickoff slot. When Oklahoma opened its season with Gabriel under center, their national broadcast pulled in just under 3 million viewers. That's a difference of over 4 million people watching one quarterback's debut versus another's. And in the world of advertising, that's tens of millions of dollars in potential revenue. Adidas saw those numbers and understood the stakes. Even in losing efforts later in the season, Sanders kept Colorado games above the 5 million viewer mark, while Gabriel's Sooners didn't crack that threshold outside of the Red River rivalry. That's not about football quality, it's about which quarterback draws a casual audience. Ticket markets also illustrate the divide. In Boulder, resale prices spiked from $72 to $280 on average, with marquee games exceeding $500. Oklahoma games with Gabriel remained flat, steadying around $110 to $130 for most matchups. In fact, resale platforms reported that Oklahoma's average ticket price fell slightly in 2023 compared to 2022, despite Gabriel's efficient play. This shows the intangible factor at work. Gabriel maintains tradition, but Sanders creates an event. Adidas as a brand doesn't want steady, they want disruptive. They want the quarterback whose presence changes the economics of an entire program. Jersey sales hammer the comparison home. Sanders' #2 Colorado jersey cracked the national top 5 on Fanatics, rivaling quarterbacks from perennial playoff contenders. Gabriel's jersey never reached the top 20, meaning his sales didn't register as a national trend. This isn't a question of fan loyalty. Oklahoma fans buy jerseys no matter what. It's a question of crossover appeal. Sanders' gear is being worn by fans who don't even follow Colorado football, by young kids who see his highlights on TikTok, by celebrities sitting courtside at NBA games. Gabriel's jerseys, while respected in Norman, simply don't escape regional boundaries. Adidas went with the name they knew could live in both sports and lifestyle spaces. Social media presence creates an even starker contrast. Sanders surged to over 1.5 million Instagram followers and millions more across TikTok and Twitter. Gabriel, combined across all platforms, hovers under 200,000. For Adidas, this isn't about vanity metrics, it's about built-in advertising reach. When Sanders posts an Adidas promo, millions will see it instantly. When Gabriel posts, the impact is limited. This is the same reason Nike locked in Zion Williamson before his first NBA game. The audience already existed. Adidas wanted the same leverage with Sanders. Even in performance metrics, Sanders' adversity adds to his endorsement appeal. Playing behind an offensive line that allowed 52 sacks, Sanders still put up 3,230 yards and 27 touchdowns. Gabriel, protected by one of the Big 12's better lines, posted 3,660 yards and 30 touchdowns with fewer hits. On paper, Gabriel's stats are stronger. In narrative terms, Sanders' stats are louder. Adidas thrives on narrative. The fact that Sanders put up near identical numbers while running for his life feeds into a story of resilience, grit, and toughness. Gabriel's smooth efficiency, while admirable, doesn't translate into marketing drama. This Adidas deal also echoes historical rivalries in marketing. When Reebok made Allen Iverson their face in the late 90s, they didn't do it because he was guaranteed to win titles. They did it because he embodied cultural momentum that other stars couldn't match. Gabriel is closer to a Tim Duncan archetype, respected, fundamentally sound, but understated. Brands rarely chase understated. They chase volatility, buzz, and energy, all of which Sanders delivers in spades. Even gambling data reflects the divide. Prop bets on Sanders passing yards became some of the most popular in the country during the 2023 season. Sportsbooks reported Colorado games consistently ranked among the highest handled contests, even when they weren't marquee matchups. Gabriel's games, despite Oklahoma's national relevance, didn't produce the same betting handle. That distinction matters because betting companies often partner with athletes who move lines. Adidas is taking advantage of the same pattern. The quarterback who shifts markets is the one who commands sponsorships. The larger picture becomes clear. Adidas didn't just sign Sanders over Gabriel, they validated a market reality that has existed for a year. Sanders is the modern prototype of a quarterback endorsement candidate. Gabriel is the traditional model, productive, respected, and consistent, but without national resonance. In today's endorsement climate, the prototype wins every time.